The pressure to buy stuff has never been higher than it is right now, but it seems that the pendulum has swung in the opposite direction with the internet's latest fixation, Underconsumption-core. This anti-buy movement is having a moment online right now. But the internet has a habit of tossing trends out as fast as they are created, and so we predict that by the time this video comes out, it'll probably already be dead. A huge thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video. Y'all don't even know the effort that I go into cleaning my house so that I can shoot these videos for you.
Again, it's a team effort.
We got kids' toys, trucks, kids' chairs, diaper inserts. Leah's just sitting in a pile of stuff.
I went to go work in the other room. He's like, no, I like it when you're there.
Anyway, let's get into it. If you've followed this channel for any length of time, you know that the hyper-consumer world of today sucks for pretty much everybody involved. So when we saw that Underconsumption-core as a trend was going viral online, we were like, this is perfect. We don't even need to make these videos anymore. We can just shut the whole channel down and move on with our lives. But sadly, that's obviously not the case. Underconsumption-core is a direct comment on the consumerism content that we see all over social media today. But in particular, it seems to have found its place in short-form video. As you might have seen, there is a whole world of restocking videos online where people are filling their fridges with plastic-covered drinks and snacks and whatnot. Clothing haul videos where people are buying dozens of pieces of clothing in a single day and then showing them off. And there's this sudden fascination with particular products like this vacuum, which is pink, I guess, is the idea there. Apps like TikTok have normalized buying excessively all the time whenever possible, and this trend is a response to it. This is a whole online movement aimed at critiquing overspending habits and wastefulness and mindless consumption. And so on the surface of this whole thing, we're huge fans of this new movement. But I'm sad to say that my prediction is that this trend will go the way of all of the trends before it. Let me explain why. First off, I think we need to mention that this is not the first time that promoting mindful consumption has become popular enough for us to talk about it here on this channel. We've covered the zero waste movement, we've talked about minimalism, and we've made an episode on thrifting, just to name a few. And from mason jars full of garbage to deciding what items in our lives spark joy, these trends have taught us one common thing, that having less is actually better. And as we kind of talked about in those episodes, these movements have deflated from their once peaks of popularity. And this is mostly because the never-ending rotation of the capitalist cog and wheels turns one fringe movement into a mainstream aesthetic, which is then eventually turned into obscurity. It's not that these ideas didn't hold real tangible value or that people today aren't still using their reusable bags or living minimalist lives, but that the hyper-consumer world that they fought against eventually consumed them and then spat them out when they were done with them. But Underconsumption-core has appeared on the scene in some slightly different circumstances. Unlike zero waste and minimalism, which were trends that happened largely before the pandemic, this whole underconsumption business happened after. Post-pandemic, people are more financially stressed than they have ever been, and buying stuff has never been easier. It's a weird combo, actually, because on one hand, we're seeing inflation rising in many places around the world, but being constantly barraged by advertisement and shopping content online telling you to spend more money. So perhaps predictably, people are starting to feel this disconnect from their lived experiences in the real world to the content that they're seeing online. And as a result, Underconsumption-core is like a breath of fresh air, the opposite of what's been normalized online. Underconsumption-core acts as this reprieve from the unrelatability of influencers today, a way for regular people to still enjoy the curated aesthetic of the internet without the exorbitant levels of stuff that you need to buy to participate. And it seems to be working. Some people have described this kind of content like being pulled out of a trance. And it's weird to think, but yeah, people are realizing that buying stuff that you don't need is dumb on a whole bunch of levels. Most obviously, though, is financially. Fortunately, you can count on Rocket Money to help you manage your budget and keep track of bills. Yes, we got a sponsor on the channel, baby, and I'm very excited about it. Rocket Money is the all-in-one finance app that helps you save more and spend less. Rocket Money helps you manage your subscriptions, lower your bills, build a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one tidy little platform. With how often we're being told to buy stuff, it is really hard to just keep a handle on things. And Rocket Money helps you monitor your credit and analyze your spending habits so that you can get a customized budget that works for you. Plus, it's super helpful to be able to get notifications when you've exceeded your limits so that you know when to get back on track. Rocket Money can even help you lower your bills by negotiating for you from internet service to cable to even your phone plan. Rocket Money has helped save its customers up to $740 a year when they use all of the features, with over 500 million in canceled subscriptions. To save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/futureproof or click the link in the description to get started for free. You can also unlock even more features with premium. Once again, that is rocketmoney.com/futureproof to get started for free. Thank you so much to Rocket Money for sponsoring. Now let's get back into the video. So if the trend is positive in all of these ways, why are we predicting its death? Well, see, while the trend feels relatable to the lived experiences of more normal people, it's struggling to really define itself as something unique in that way. The honest truth is that it's not really offering us anything exciting, right? Like, look at these examples. Finishing makeup and skincare products before buying replacements, repurposing old towels and clothing as cleaning rags, or buying secondhand furniture. As we've said, there's been lots of trends that have promoted these kinds of things in the past. And on top of that, these are probably just kind of normal behaviors for a lot of people, which is why we've actually seen people making normal consumption core videos in response to it. The maddening part about all of this is that we're not taking 2 steps forward and just 1 step back. We're kind of trying to figure out what direction to even go in, because influencers have normalized overconsumption as the default. We now think that just finishing a product before buying another one is trendy. It's sad that we needed this trend to show people that overconsumption isn't actually the norm. But what it also shows us is that a lot of the content that we see online is usually pretty middle class, at least. Because some people are saying Underconsumption-core is just glamorizing poverty. And while it's true that a lot of these practices that you see in these videos, like repairing your old clothes or reusing containers, are often practiced by lower income individuals to save money, it's a little more complicated than that. The sad truth is that a lot of people have been completely brainwashed by our modern consumer society and might genuinely be learning from this. But I wanted to point out that this is not a new critique when it comes to these sorts of trends. Trends like minimalism and zero waste and TikTok's clean girl aesthetic have been criticized for centering whiteness and wealth. But I think this argument kind of sucks. Why is caring about your stuff a symbol of poverty? Why would buying something that you then enjoy and care about and want to use for a long time, developing a relationship with it, a poor person thing? A quote from The Guardian actually summed this up perfectly. There's little acknowledgement of the fact that this viewpoint negates the communities, such as those in the global south where these practices are common and not necessarily linked to poverty or class. Rather, they are cultural necessities and signifiers of care. This criticism suggests that most people will be overconsumers by default if they're not poor, which is not the case. It is true that many demographics have been practicing underconsumption habits out of necessity, but it's also a cultural story that we tell about ourselves. It's a values thing that we are taught, like respect and appreciation for the things that we have. And okay, look, we're getting, a little psychological here. We're a little in the weeds, but if you are enjoying this kind of analysis and you relate to the way that we think here on this channel, then maybe you should subscribe, because this is the kind of dialogues that we're trying to make normal here on the internet. And if you're vibing with it, subscribe, because we put out a video every single week. But there's another reason why this trend is doomed, and it's right there in the name. The name's kind of cumbersome to begin with, Underconsumption-core, but The core being the key word here follows a similar formula to a lot of TikTok aesthetic trends that you might see online today. You might have seen cottagecore or fairycore or goblincore. Yes, that's a thing apparently. While aesthetics, as they are known online, can be fun forms of self-expression, it's revealing that underconsumption-core falls under this label. On one hand, you could interpret underconsumption-core as a critique of aesthetic labels as a whole, you know, like a cheeky jab at the internet's desire to categorize everything. If cluttercore is a thing, then underconsumption-core is maybe the opposite, right? Or, and more likely, in my opinion, underconsumption-core is just another trend in and of itself. Either way, the popularization of cores when talking about underconsumption exposes a fascinating desire to make a trend out of everything. It's like the only way that we can convince people to do good things is by making them sort of exciting and trendy online. Is trendification a bad thing? I mean, maybe not. If underconsumption core is the way that the masses are introduced to mindful consumption and it actually leads to action in the real world, then that's cool. But I don't think that it's going to last. Earlier we mentioned the clean girl aesthetic, right? You might also remember the 2023's de-influencer movement or the minimalist capsule wardrobes of the past, but you probably haven't seen any of them recently. In all of these trends, we saw online content promoting mindful consumption through certain aesthetics and values that come and go within a year or so. The fact that we live in a society that only cares about social issues when they're made to be fun in some sort of way is telling. Being sustainable or frugal or clean girl or whatever it is, it's just another look that you can achieve if you do certain things and, more importantly, post about it online. And then there's this whole other side that we need to talk about, which is the fact that this trend and all of the other ones that we have mentioned before it seem to be mostly targeting women. While women make up a major percentage of the total consumers today, it is also fair to point out that spending habits of women are more scrutinized than others. You might remember TikTok's girl math trend.
If you return an item at the store, you just earn money. So if you return something and buy something at the same time, it was free.
Girl math isn't a thing!
All of these haul videos, these restock videos, the Stanley Tumbler collections.
You gotta choose one that I have not used in a while because I feel like I've been repeating a lot.
I think it's fair to say that these have all been propagated, catapulted by women. And then it's also on the flip side. Like if you look up TikTok overconsumption on YouTube, there's a lot of critiques made by women. If you want to learn more about this, we've got a couple of very interesting articles that are linked down in our sources section, which is in the description of every single video if you ever want to fact check what we're saying. In fact, in the researching of this video, it was pretty hard to find products that specifically targeted men that are overconsumed in this way. And this is not to say, of course, that women are just compulsive shoppers or that they just are brainwashed more easily than men or whatever, because the stats show that men and women spend a similar amount each year. And while women drive 80% of consumer spending, they are also more often shopping for the entire household. So I think the conclusion here is pretty clear. Women are the problem. And if you thought that I wasn't joking there for even just a little second, maybe that's proof that we need to make a video about how brands market differently towards men and women. Let us know if you'd be interested in hearing us talk about that. But what I think that this ultimately boils down to, and why I have so little faith in this trend, is the micro trend phenomenon. We've made a whole video about why trends are getting shorter today, and one of the products of this shift is micro trends. Trends, songs, phrases, people, and ideas that catch hold in the online whirlpool of media for a couple months or even weeks just to fade as quickly. And the problem with underconsumption core is ultimately that it doesn't work within the consumer culture that it's critiquing. Whereas minimalism and zero waste had certain aesthetics associated with them, they had a cultural backdrop even. They had rules and they had social debates about the ideas of what it meant to be a minimalist or whatever. But they also had, critically, stuff that you should and should not buy to be a part of the movement. This sort of color coordination helped define the community, right? And it's sadly like a form of gatekeeping or signaling, which is sad, but it meant that people could identify with one another. There was a belongingness and a sense of community to those movements. Whereas underconsumption core feels like a callback to an idea, a reboot of a classic. There in all of the ways that it technically should, but in none of the ways that really mattered. If you enjoyed today's video and you want to see more of them, make sure that you're subscribed, and we'll see you every week for another upload. Thanks for watching.